I feel like there's something super formal we should call you. What do people call?
Yeah.
Like
Most people, if you're being super formal, they would say Mayor Ray Russom, but a lot of people just call me Mayor Caren. It's kind of like Mayor Pete.
What do you want for the podcast?
Go with Mayor Caren or just Caren.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be formal.
Mayor Caren.
I want it Mayor Caren.
Yeah, or like,
good.
or even like
Girl,
Your Highness.
When a woman
Something.
gets
Your
a
Highness?
position, you
Yeah.
need to like.
Yeah, you got it.
You lean into that.
Yeah.
It's funny. I get it, and I struggle with that just a little bit because I am a public servant, and I really do come at it from a servant mentality, and so it's. To be elevated like that is uncomfortable for me. This is my 19th year in public service.
Wow.
Whoa.
But I still never, when people come in and they fumble with that and say, just call me Caren, I'm your neighbor.
I'm your
Just call me
neighbor.
Caren.
That's
I'm
why you're
working
where
for
you're
you.
at.
You're my
I should be
neighbor,
calling
but
you-
you're a boss.
But then we can follow behind you and be like, that's Mayor Karen.
That's Mayor Karen.
So that's why it
you,
works. We'll
folks.
let you be
Be my
humble, but we'll be your.
entourage?
Yeah. We'll. So just eat that mic. Get it right up close if you
Okay.
can. Yeah, 19 years.
19 years.
How did you get started in public service?
Stories like these are much more, and I feel like I need to crane to
I know,
see you.
sorry,
Stories like these are much more common than you would think, but I was literally down at a bonfire at Pismo Beach, and another mom who our kids were both at Ocean View School, her husband was a city council member. And so I knew him from that. I couldn't have told you 2 names of city council members at that time. I was 35, and he said, hey, I'd really like you to consider being my planning commissioner. And I said, what's a planning commissioner? And he, back in those days, I hate to say it like that because I sound so old, but you had to go down to the South County Library and check out DVDs to watch old meetings. So I did. I went down, checked out DVDs. My parents were in real estate and development, so it wasn't foreign to me. Land use wasn't foreign to me. And so that's why he talked to me. And I watched a few meetings and I thought, well, I'll give it a try. And I was a stay-at-home mom at that time. And went to my first meeting and it was like a duck in water. And
Really just clicked, huh?
Yeah, it really did. And went up from there.
Wow.
What was it about it that clicked for you? Like, how did those stars align?
Internally, you mean?
Yeah.
I think it was, gosh, that's a good question. It's probably
It was not on
having.
the sheet.
No, sorry, that was off topic. Sorry.
No, I think it's probably just having the connection to not only people but to the built environment that was so compelling, and I had a hand in what that built environment looked like, and that's a really interesting place to come from. That being a decision maker in that was a really interesting academically place to be. And I'm an academic at heart. And so I really just dove into all the staff reports and I educated myself and I just really had a great time at it. And I'm also, in case you can't notice, kind of a type A, extrovert. And so being in front of people is not difficult for me. I enjoy it. And I'm a teacher. That's what I do for a living. So, being out in the public realm and having people listen to what I'm saying isn't foreign, but at the same time, I'm not a decision maker in education. So it sort of gave me this level of involvement that I don't get professionally.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I think it just, maybe that's where it started.
Was it something that you had been looking for and then you, in terms of like having that sort of thing click for you and checking those boxes, or did you not know it was something you were looking for until you did it? Does that make sense?
I did not know. Yeah,
But
I
then
had
you
no idea.
then you got involved and it was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to do.
Oh, and it was scandalous.
Why? Well, yeah. What?
So
I like this. I want to hear
Tell
it.
us more. Tell us more.
At my first meeting, there was a family who owned a building down by Miners Hardware on Station Way, kind of by
Yeah.
the fire station. And they wanted to turn the upper unit into a residential unit. And the city council at that time, the planning commission at that time didn't want to do that because they couldn't provide parks and open space for whatever children potentially could live there. And I was just going from my gut. And so the argument that I made is that's not our problem to solve. and that the market should solve that problem. And if they're providing this, the people who are going to go for living like that probably isn't a family. In fact, they're probably moving into a multi-use area specifically to be in the middle of everything and probably not with children. So it's kind of on them whether or not it succeeds or fails. And ultimately, that argument won the day. They did go forward. And the next morning, I got a call from the chair of the Planning Commission saying,
"You're not welcome here anymore."
No, he said, "Oh, I guess you're running for council already, aren't you?" And I was very taken aback because that even being on Planning Commission wasn't on my radar.
Wow.
I picked up somebody else's who'd quit halfway through. So it wasn't on my radar at all. It wasn't even election time. And I said, I don't know how to answer that. I'm just being me. And that's all I've ever done.
I love that.
That's one way to piss him off.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You're not scheming. You have good intentions. And I love hearing you say you operate from your gut, because I think a lot of times that's what we miss.
Yeah.
You know?
Especially in politics, like people often, and one of the gifts of being in politics is most of the people that I meet who are public servants are really, really good people, really good people, no matter which side of the aisle they're on. We don't have aisles at the local level, but it doesn't matter if we all agree. All of them, almost all of them, 99 out of 100 of them are coming from a really good, kind place. And if you just recognize that, then the whole rest of it just falls into place.
So 19 years later, I'm curious, what's been the thing you loved most about being in public service? What are some things that maybe have surprised you?
Two things, I guess. The thing that I like the most is, as an example, I wouldn't have the opportunity to meet the three of you.
Oh.
And it's because of my position that I get to do that. And I'm continually humbled by the people that I meet in the community who are the real people who are doing the real work that make sure everything happens. And those are volunteers. Those are people who don't do things. I mean, I'm not doing it for money either. We don't make anything, but it's a little tiny bit. It doesn't even get to minimum wage. But, I meet these extraordinary people every single day. And if I was walking around my regular life, I would be just sort of in this little bubble where I wouldn't get the chance to do that. And after 20 years of doing this, it's really a special privilege to be able to do that.
So you love the relationships that you're building, and that community engagement, I think, is so important, especially like being the mayor. It's like getting to know the heart of the community, and you were obviously in it in the beginning, so that makes it even easier. But like just to continue to have those relationships, and then just like, I'm sure like when you're making decisions, you're like, oh yeah, I was just talking to, Ray at the fire department or whatever. And like, and you have to weigh all these different decision-making processes, which is probably extremely difficult. No,
not really. But because I'm a people person,
yeah,
I'll give you a really cool example. So at the heart of the village, we're always looking to make sure that our village is our showcase, our jewel, right?
Yes.
And there's a big tree as you go towards the village. It's in a little triangle median across from Bank of America as you enter the village.
Oh, yeah.
And I have always wanted to light that tree. That is no small feat because there's not electrical in that median. And so I had this dream, and it's been brewing in the back of my head, and I meet people all the time. And just this last fall, I got approached by someone in the Five Cities Rotary Club, it was the president, who was each year they have their president's project, and they get a certain amount of money, and they get to go do something out in the community. And he said, do you have an idea for me? And I said, do I ever?
Do I ever?
And so I talked to him about it, and I told him what my vision was, and he said, oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to do. And what I wanted to do was not just light it white, but light it with changeable LEDs so that at Valentine's Day, it could be pink. At Christmas time, it could be red, white, and green. And if Arroyo Grande wins CIF, it can be blue and gold.
Oh, that's cool.
That was my vision, is we could communicate with the community in that way. Well, like I said, it wasn't an easy project, and it turned out to be about double the cost that we thought it was going to be once we got all the pieces in place. And so rather than that falling apart, we reached out to Arroyo Grande Rotary Club, and the two clubs combined forces, combined fiscal resources, and we lit the tree in March.
I love that.
Wow.
And that's the privilege that I have, that I have so many of these connections. This is what the people pay me to do. They pay me to do these things. That's why they elect me. And because I have those connections, and I've been in the community, my whole life, that I can make those things happen.
That's really
That's really cool. So what other things have you been most proud of that you've been able to accomplish over the last 2 decades?
Oh gosh.
I know it's a big question.
There's so many
I know, I'm
things.
sure.
Another one of those connections things, do you, so Traffic Way, when you go down Traffic Way and right before you get on the freeway, there is a new building there. It's Rugged Radios.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful building. They did an amazing job. That used to be a field, as were the houses behind it. And we live nearby, so we were driving down that road every single day. And I knew who owned that. I knew that they weren't sure what they were going to do with it. I knew that what the city wanted to do with it. We wanted a car dealership, of course, because we wanted the tax revenue. And I got a call from Greg Cottrell from Rugged Radios. Their business was down on Grand, where Banner Coffee is now.
Yeah.
And they were bursting at the seams. And he basically said, look, Caren, this company was made in Arroyo Grande. I don't want to leave Arroyo Grande. A lot of my partners want to go to Texas. They want to go to Arizona. I don't want to leave here, but I have to find a place. And I said, I got it. I got an idea.
Yeah.
Let me make a phone call. And so I called up the person who owned the property. That was Nick Tompkins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I called him up and I said, Nick, I got somebody I want you to meet. And I think you two are going to see eye to eye. I think there's an opportunity here. Fast forward, Rugged Radios has its worldwide headquarters in Arroyo Grande.
So cool.
And that kept 70 head of household jobs in Arroyo Grande.
That's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's
We need
very
those
cool.
jobs.
Exactly.
We need
What?
them.
How do you even think about those kinds of opportunities? Like, I mean, clearly we would love, I think, more of that to keep people here. It's really hard to stay. So how as the mayor do you process and get the right people involved in those kinds of decisions and plan for those sorts of things?
I'm glad you asked. Actually,
Oh.
we have something right now that's happening. So I was contacted by Vandenberg Air Force Base a few months ago, and they wanted to put together a mayor's roundtable, including people from Santa Barbara County, Ventura County, and San Luis Obispo County. So we got invited to do that. Not all the mayors showed up, but I did.
Yeah.
And I brought my city manager with me, and we got to really sit down with the leadership, specifically with Colonel Schumacher, who is the Delta commander at Vandenberg Space Force Base, and basically understanding what their needs were. And a critical need is that they need housing
Yeah.
for their people. And we toured the base, and I don't know if anybody knows this, but I mean, it kind of made me laugh. They have 999 residences
Oh wow.
on
I did
Vandenberg
not
Space
know
Force
that.
Base. And I asked him, well, first thing I said is, and there's always room for one more, like it's Disneyland. But I asked him, why not 1,000? That's it's not an arbitrary number.
Right.
It's not coincidental. And he said he didn't know, but it probably had to do with federal regulations of some sort. Like they couldn't hit 1,000. So without a doubt, as Vandenberg Space Force Base continues to expand, you've seen the increased launches. That's a huge tech driver, head of household job driver. It is not that far from Arroyo Grande, Pismo Beach, or Santa Barbara that we can really contribute to that. And that is providing head of household jobs for us. And in some ways, we're not a bedroom community, but we provide that high level housing.
Yeah, even if it's like they're not moving here, because like we have a lot of people that come to like Orchid and then work at Space Force. But what they're looking for the next closest town that might offer things that they're looking for that might not be in Orchid. So they're coming to AG and spending money here and driving tax revenue, and it's pretty cool. I mean, I think Space Force is going to be one of the big drivers, and seems like Diablo is going to stay around for a while longer. But with Space Force, it's going to also create more jobs, which is like those are the jobs that we really like to see because it allows someone the income to stay here, build a family here, be around for a long time. Like that's what we love. In real estate, we don't want people just moving temporarily here, being a part of the community for 5 years and then taking off to Tennessee or wherever. So I love that idea of like Vandenberg having the mayor's council, and it's a big opportunity to miss. I would think I'm like, why would any mayor miss that?
I think that if you grew up here, which, I did,
me too.
Vandenberg is just something that's just sort of over there and things fly in the sky now and then. And you don't think a whole lot of it.
That's
Right.
fair. Yeah.
And so to get down there and get educated about what they're doing and how they're coming into the modern world. And that's a big piece of our national defense system. I mean, there's a whole lot. I mean, I teach world history. So, I mean, this dovetails into what I really care about. But we also have some more considerations there because when a family moves, let's say they get that head of household job at Vandenberg Air Force Base or Space Force Base, we also need to have enough head of household jobs that that we call them trailing spouses, that this other spouse can find a job. And often those become civil service jobs. They work for the government or they work for cities or whatever. But we need to be mindful of that too. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
So shifting kind of towards real estate, I'm curious, are there other projects that you have planned or thinking about in the future that might impact real estate, property values, or, more development, anything that you guys are processing, thinking through?
Oh yeah. So we have a couple things. Gosh, my mind just went to like a whole checklist.
Yeah.
So I hope I get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
From a tourism standpoint, which actually helps, because when you have tourist services, those are communities that people want to live in. And I'm sure maybe you all have the license plate frame that says, I live where you visit.
Yeah.
So we have visitor services and specifically a hotel planned over on Old Ranch Road, which is right next to the Women's Club, right off the freeway. That helps support all the infrastructure and all the businesses that people want when they move here. So that's why you move here to Arroyo Grande, because we have high-level restaurants, because we have great things to do and see and walk to. So we've got that. We've got some affordable housing that's coming in through partnerships with Haslo.
Yeah.
At the corner of Oak Park and El Camino Real. That's going to be 63 units coming in there. That's going to be really fantastic. There's opportunity on the other side of the freeway near Kennedy. There's some open space there. There have been talks about doing, again, when I'm saying affordable housing, that could mean 18 different things.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So a little more higher density, a little more higher up. So 3, maybe even 4 stories. They're asking if the community has the appetite for that.
I think we need to have
think we
appetite.
do.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing that come forward. There's even opportunities in the village of being able to do live work or vertical
That
mixed
would be
use.
very sweet.
That's so
Right.
cool.
So I know that there are projects brewing. I can't share any more than that because they're not my projects. They're private, but there's lots of opportunity. And then finally, the last thing I wanted to say is we have our general plan update coming.
Right.
The last time, and that drives what you're talking about. The last time we updated the general plan was in 2000. So it's 24 years
That's
old.
old.
These typically get updated every 10 to 20 years, and a true update about every 20 years. It's really hard. It's going to take us 3 years to do it. Huge amount of community engagement. And as an example, in 2000, when we did it before, everybody was worried about growth and everybody was worried about the loss of agriculture. And so our general plan is huge protections for those sorts of things. And it's not anti-growth, but it's not really friendly in terms of development, so that if we want somebody to come and do something, there are ways for us to set up the general plan that it becomes less risky for someone to come in and do a project. That's not what we did in 2000. So now here, fast forward to 2024, we do want to be doing that because we have a different world now, and everybody across all swaths of the population knows we need affordable housing.
Yeah.
The question is what's affordable and how many different iterations of that are there and where do they go? And those are the questions we're trying to answer. But as a mom of a 22-year-old and a 24-year-old who are away at college, I want them to be able to come back here. And how many times have we heard people say that? I am actively working towards figuring out how we provide that. I don't want to say lower level, but more like starter home type things, even if they're shared walls, even if they're multifamily condominiums, townhomes, those sorts of things. There's an insatiable demand for single family residences.
Yeah.
And those will never, ever be affordable. That's just all there is to it, because the demand is insatiable and people come here with cash.
Yeah.
I mean, we really do live in
true.
paradise. So we need to start building things that don't address that insatiable demand. And that's how we're going to make a dent in what we really need for being able to build families and multi-generational communities.
Have you found that you've had to persuade people to buy into that idea? Or has there been sort of over the last 20 years a movement towards an understanding that yes, we need to do these kinds of things? Because it's tough. There's a balance between we love the way that AG and the Central Coast is. We love the small town feel. And on one hand, I understand we don't want it to grow. We want it to always stay the same. But it's like a little bit unfair. Like we got in, but you can't. So how do you balance that and have those conversations And are you having to persuade people, or is there just a general like understanding of we all agree that yes, we need to do this. We might disagree on how though. What have you found?
I've found that in the last 10 years, it's drastically changed.
Really?
And there's probably some chart of real estate pricing that would follow what I've seen in the public sentiment. So I think that's true. As an example, I came into public service in 2005. And at that time, well, it's still there. There's a property just south of Arroyo Grande city line, which is called the Fredericks property. It's owned by the Fredericks family.
Is it like by like the high school?
No,
like
it's across the 101
okay.
at about El Campo.
Oh, the one on the hill.
Yes.
Yeah, the white
Yes.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
well, it's no, that's the other side. Go
The
east.
opposite. Yeah,
Go
opposite
east.
side of that.
So south of St. John's Church, up the hill from the village, and there's kind of a mesa up there, and it's on the same side of the freeway as Letitia.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
it's a fair amount of acreage. I can't remember how much. I've toured the property with the owners. It's a wonderful property. There's so much opportunity, not only for housing, but for expanding sort of a light industrial and bringing in companies that need more square footage. Again, pointing towards those head of household jobs, which I care deeply about bringing here. So there's opportunity there. When I first started, and especially after the general plan update in 2000, there was changes to the general plan update that made it more difficult for that to go forward because people were so worried about the expansion of Arroyo Grande, the impacts to water, and really the impacts to the community. So it wasn't blocking it, but it certainly wasn't making it easy. And if you would have said the name of that property to someone in a meeting, you'd be, torches and pitchforks would appear magically. And then about 6 or 7 years ago, we had a couple of interns that were working for the City of Arroyo Grande, and they were learning programming like SketchUp and InDesign, and those are used in planning. And so as a project, staff gave them the Fredericks property and said, imagine what this could be. And they did it all in SketchUp, and that allowed them, I think it was SketchUp, I forget which one they used, I'm not an architect, but they did a whole thing where you could not only see it, but you could fly over it. And like almost like there was a drone view.
Yeah.
And so they came to city council to present it. I was prepared that meeting. And like I said, it was right before COVID, I think. And COVID like totally blew our ability to remember what year something happened.
It's all a black hole.
Right. So they came to city council to do that presentation, and I was fully ready for the torches and pitchforks. Like, I can't believe you're talking about this again. We told you don't talk about this again. Nobody showed up.
Wow.
And now I hear people talking about that opportunity. And so it's really interesting that has been the sentiment in the last maybe 5-6 years. I think it has to correlate with the increase in real estate prices. It just has to.
I think people feel the pain. It's like even if you're not personally affected by the increase in real estate prices, but you're like, this affordability, one, it's like it's expensive to live in California, and then two, how is a family supposed to move to this? How am I supposed to go visit a doctor's office and have the person behind the desk that's serving me have no disposable income at all once they pay for housing and gas and food? And you look at that and you go, there's real pain here. And so creating these jobs, housing that's affordable, like if you don't have a heart for that at all, and I know there's always gonna be like, well, that's really happening right in my backyard or whatever, but it's like you gotta at least have some compassion for the people that are serving our community, the people that are working our community. And it's just like, yeah, we got in and no one else can now. Like, that's not going to work for you.
And it doesn't work economically.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to go to the doctor's office.
Right.
You're not going to have
Right.
doctors. You're not going to have services. You're not going to have the people that support the community otherwise.
Exactly. And we come here because we have this wonderful quality of life here. And if you don't have someone who's going to be a waiter in a restaurant, which that is a thing, and they have to drive from, say, Santa Maria to get here because that's where the affordable housing is, we have an economic problem, not just a sort of community problem. It's an economic one as well. So when you have sort of the gamut of the spectrum of minimum wage jobs, which are absolutely critical to even in an affluent community like Arroyo Grande. Those are critical jobs, those services that not only support those households, but that support the tourism that gives us the life that we love here. And then you have the sort of gamut all the way up to high level, multi-$100,000 jobs that are, lawyers, doctors working out at Diablo, those sorts of things. We need the whole spectrum of that, and for a healthy community.
Yeah.
And in order to have that whole spectrum, you have to have the housing stock to match. And when I bought my first house, I was 27. So doing the math, it would have been 1995.
4 years ago.
Yeah. Good job. I bought my first house. It was a little tiny 1,000 square foot house on Turquoise Drive. I bought it from a family.
guy just sold
we
two
just sold
houses.
two back to back, like neighbors. It was the weirdest thing.
Tell
Neighbors.
me how much you sold them for.
I want to tell you, 730 and 750.
Sweet mother.
I
of
know,
God.
I know.
Yeah.
I bought for $127,000, and I had a heart attack when I signed the paperwork because I just couldn't imagine that I owed somebody that much money.
Yeah.
And I sold that house in 2005 for $505, and it had set the record at the time. And it was, sorry, not 2005, 2008. It was right before.
Oh gosh,
everything
good
went
for
down.
you.
Yeah. I took out my crystal ball that day.
Yeah,
and it said sell.
yeah.
Sell.
No, I got lucky.
Could I borrow that crystal ball, please? I could really use that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're right. I think the housing is something we talk about all the time,
Obviously,
and one of the big challenges. Are there other challenges that Arroyo Grande is facing that is top of mind for you?
Oh, without a doubt. We our biggest challenge is keeping up with inflation and being able to provide the services that the community expects us to provide.
So hard.
And you have to do that in an environment where when our majority of our revenue comes from property tax, and property tax can only go up 2% a year unless there's turnover, and the stagnant rate of inflation is 3%. So it doesn't take long to figure out that our revenue,
the
gap's just going to get wider and wider. And that gap has gotten critically wide in the last 3 years, as we all know, with double-digit inflation. So we're really struggling being able to do the basics like paving our roads. And so we are asking our citizens for a sales tax increase this year, and a 1% sales tax that will bring in, it'll basically make up the gap to help us be able to provide the infrastructure that not only our businesses need, but our residents expect. So I'm hoping that the people will see the benefits of that. The residents, through their taxes, will eventually end up paying for these roads. In Grover Beach, they did the bond that they had to do, right? So from my point of view, if you add it into sales tax, then everybody visiting us is also helping pay for those roads.
So good.
It doesn't
that's a good
fall
point.
on the backs of us. And so that's a critical thing. So that I lose sleep over that, genuinely, that we can't do what people expect us to do.
I'm like one of those people that always kind of like votes no on tax increases, but I've watched what cities have. Tax increase? Pay enough of that. Really, it all goes to the feds anyway. But when you look at like Grover Beach and the other cities that have like implemented these small tax increases, like they're very effective. And Grover Beach, to me, has transformed like the whole feel of that part of town where they've invested this money to fix the streets up. It's like it's like this is a great street to drive on. They have bike lanes. They have all these things.
Yeah, it's noticeable.
Sure,
and it increases the value of living there. Just intrinsically, like I feel safe walking down the street because it has the sidewalks and it has the stuff that you need. And like,
And we've seen property prices go up there because of all that.
That's true. Yeah, you see the value of the properties go up. Yeah, because people are more into that space. So I think like for our listeners, like, hey, don't just vote no on those type of things. Like, listen to it, read it, try to understand why it's important. When you're driving down noise and you're like, oh, look at all these potholes or whatever road, and it's like, hey, like let's get those things fixed. And the way to do that is have enough money to pay our people to go fix them and have the materials to fix them as well.
Yeah, the cost to actually, our people don't do it. We have to contract out to do that. So those costs have gone exponentially
It's
high.
so expensive.
So I'm involved in a project, and from before COVID to now, it has over doubled the cost. So like, and the materials are twice as expensive. Everything is twice as expensive. So it's like, you guys are stuck on the income from property taxes. It's extremely hard as a city to be able to go take care of the things that you want to take care of and that the citizens want to take care of, just based off that alone, which you kind of already illustrated. When it comes to housing, and this isn't on here, have you guys looked at alternative products?
Don't do it, Jeff.
Don't do it,
like
Jeff.
Don't do
different.
it. Don't
He
you do
always goes
Di-
off.
sorry,
of her.
I am that guy. But like
Squirrel.
squirrel, like modular things like that, or even like there's. I mean, you're just seeing a lot more like alternative building products that are like kind of cutting edge that people are into. People can you say boxable. I don't necessarily like that product that much, but like a modular product that's strong enough to go high and things like that. Have you guys seen that, or have you seen developers proposing stuff like that at all?
I had someone tell me recently that they were, how did this conversation go? It was very flippant, so I didn't really commit it to memory, but someone owned a property on East Grand Avenue between Halcyon and Elm. There's a lot of opportunity in that corridor. And they said, oh yeah, this guy told me he wanted to do container building there, but he thought you guys wouldn't look at it. And I'm like, let me see it. Like,
Let's look at it.
We're open to looking at anything.
Yeah.
And as another example, I had a friend who had an aging parent, and she essentially needed an ADU. But the time to build an ADU would have taken so long that wasn't going to solve her critical need of her aging parent who needed to get out of his home and into her home. And so we have literally changed the rules that you can bring in a rolling ADU. Now,
You can?
Yeah.
An AG?
Uh-huh.
When this happened?
Just now, she just decided.
Just
She
now.
just decided.
that question.
Mayor Karen,
That's amazing.
You heard it in real
you
time.
heard it in real
Breaking
time.
news.
She's
It's
yeah.
not. I wish I had that. No. And it's not that you can have a trailer sitting in your front driveway. That's
No.
not it. But you can bring in these modular things. You have to sit them on a pad, and you have to hook them up to septic and or I'm sorry, the sewage and all that stuff. I don't know
Appropriately.
in
It can't be all janky.
Yeah, exactly. But we are allowing for those pre-built units to come in.
The county won't even allow that.
Really?
You cannot in the county have a residence on wheels that's no, you cannot.
Yeah.
AG leading the charge.
You're leading you and
like it.
Slow.
Tip of the
You're
spear.
the only two cities now.
Well, and there's something particular about ours that makes ours less, I don't want to say the word
Restrictive
liberal.
or what?
Yeah, no, more restrictive.
More restrictive. Okay.
Because we were very concerned about what was happening in San Luis of people just rolling these,
Yeah.
I built this in my backyard tiny homes. That's not what we wanted to see. So there's some particulars in there, and I can
Keep it classy, AG. Keep it classy.
I love the way you're looking at opportunities, though, like that
Yeah.
corridor you were talking about between Halcyon and Elm, and like the container thing. Because I don't know, have you ever been to Vegas at Container Park? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like
I've not
old.
been there, but my brother lives in Vegas. So
You should
I'm out
ask
there
him
all the time.
It's cool. It's like Fremont Street, kind of that area, like old downtown. There's a place called Container Park, and it's C-train containers, stacked too high in I guess a U shape with like a kind of amphitheater kind of thing at the end. They're all shops, like a playground in the middle. But those kinds of things would be so fun to have in the community.
The thing is, they're not cheaper.
They're not cheaper at all.
Cheap, but it's
They're
cool,
not.
Jeff. Who
They're cool.
cares?
Yeah,
It's
my
money.
husband's
Raise the
an
sales
architect.
tax.
Yeah.
Let's pay for it. Let's do this.
My husband's
creamery
an
in Tuscaloosa.
architect.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
and
He's like they're expensive.
Yeah, we
Yep.
go through this
To
all
meet the
time.
code. Yeah.
But it's awesome, you guys.
It is.
It
It's
is
fun.
Who cares about money? It's awesome.
I
Bree,
do
you got
love
money
that
to
though.
spend?
And
Bring
you
it in.
saying that about being open, I feel like the education piece is huge, because I know if you don't take the time to educate yourself on these things, it is easier to just be like, why would we spend more money? Why would we do that? But to have a leader that's open to everything and not attached to anything and able to reevaluate like that, I think is huge for all of us.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like the council's open to it as well?
Currently, yeah. I mean, where you've got an election coming up, so you never know how that's going to change.
Yeah.
But I will say, I come from a family who's in real estate, so the open mind about what can be done in the built environment is just part of my DNA, and that I'm privileged to again be in this position to be able to exercise that sort of curiosity. But that being said, we're not only open to what people want to do in Arroyo Grande, but on the flip side, we know that everybody wants to preserve historic character. Everybody wants the small town feel. Everybody wants that community sort of vision when we make those decisions. So it matters that, as an example, we have an anti-franchise agreement or an ordinance in the village of Arroyo Grande. So basically what that says is if you've got more than, I think the number is 10 because we just updated it, franchisees or locations, you can't be in the village.
Interesting.
And it's basically to make it so that Starbucks and Subway
don't show up
there. And it's not that we don't love those companies. We do. But we have other places in the city where that's appropriate. And we have 3 Starbucks in the city of Arroyo Grande. So, that we welcome everybody, but we also recognize that, and that's how you exercise that general plan that we're updating, is there are appropriate places and opportunity everywhere in Arroyo Grande, but it doesn't mean anywhere in Arroyo Grande. So that's a piece of that.
Yeah.
That's
And
so wise.
also with that whole historic and small town feel, some of that comes from just the community events, not necessarily the built environment. And so that's a piece of that as well. And that's a big, like, again, if we one time, people don't, sometimes there's things going on in the city that they think the city does, and it's not us. It's some volunteer group that is putting something on. And that was true for Halloween in the village. And the volunteer group who was going to do it decided not to. So that was that.
Yeah.
And not kidding, you'd have thought we'd have dropped a nuclear bomb in the middle of Arroyo Grande. I mean, it
People
was
are freaking out.
complete freak out.
Wow.
But when we're approving a $40 million budget, nobody shows up.
Priorities.
Have to get that candy.
Yeah. But so they care really deeply about that. So when you talk about this opportunity with container homes as an example, as not only an alternative building product, but also just an alternative look, there are appropriate places to do that. And maybe that mid-Grand corridor is the appropriate place. I don't know. But you also can deal with visual treatments, facades, and all that stuff that makes it speak to who we are without changing the opportunity of doing something unique. So we're open to it always, but it kind of does depend on where it is. If it's in the village, it's going to be under a microscope. If it's outside the village, then there's a lot more opportunity.
So I'm curious, we've been tiptoeing around this question, but what do you hope people sort of think, feel, and believe about Arroyo Grande, whether they're residents or visitors? And what do you hope for the future of AG? Like what's on your mind? I mean, not specific projects necessarily, but what do you hope to see or hope people think, feel, and believe about our community?
I think that connectedness that I talked about at the very beginning, I think is what makes Arroyo Grande special. I've been here since junior high. I've been here for almost 40 years. And every time I go somewhere, I'm 1 or 2 degrees separated from whoever I'm talking to. And I went to high school with the guy who just, fixed my garage, or I, went to college with this person, and my kids are playing water polo, and teammates of mine from my years our kids are playing together.
Oh, cool.
And that multi-generational piece is what makes a community a community. And it brings it back to where you guys are. And I think that, I just had this conversation with Carol Pruitt yesterday, and he was the owner of Midstate Bank. And he was telling me yesterday that he has a theory of what makes Arroyo Grande so special, and that is back in the early 1960s, a few things happened. First, we had people who had the vision to bring a hospital here. And second was the bank, because you need a place where you're going to be able to finance what you want to do. And there was a third piece, and I can't remember what it was.
It's really important.
But there were those 3 things, but he was underscoring what we were talking about making sure that our kids can live here, and their kids can live here, and their kids can live here. And that has been true. Arroyo Grande incorporated in 1911. That's been true for over 100 years.
Wow.
And so that is the critical piece. So when we talk about the inevitable changes that come from growth or from the industry that you're in, which is a critical industry, it's going to change the visual built environment. But there are ways to do that with an eye towards that, not just feeling small town because you're looking at a building that has been designed a certain way, but also because we are making it so that my kid can come back and he can start his family here. And maybe he's not going to live in a house like mine, but we need products out there that he can make that starter home. And we joked about my turquoise house. That used to be a starter home. That's not a starter home anymore.
Yeah.
So we need to provide starter homes that can do that. And in that way, you create that sense of community and connectedness and that investment, that personal investment in where we live that gets people to volunteer to be at the Bible school here, or to volunteer to work at a festival and make that happen. You know, as an example, the Harvest Festival, which we call the For Us By Us Festival, that's done by volunteers, and it's a tremendous amount of work. And it's by people who, the head of that committee this year, that's what the third thing is. The head of the Harvest Festival committee, her father owned the Times Press Recorder.
Oh.
And that's what came to be in 1961. That was the other piece
The
that
newspaper.
Carol Pruitt had said. There was a community newspaper. So we had a newspaper, a hospital, and a bank.
I think that just sold that building.
Really?
Is that where Everyday Church was, and now it's Equippers?
I don't know.
I can't remember.
By Greenhouse Coffee? Is that it?
This is any realtor you can't get through a conversation
Sorry.
without us being like, I think I know that property.
I know that property. Sorry.
You know, one
Yes.
time I toured that property.
I've been in this world. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
That's really cool. So it's
I don't know if that answered your
But like, I
question.
love that. But let's just stop right there for a second.
Yeah.
So the newspaper, so you're communicating to everybody, building community. Like, hey, this is what's going on in our little community. The bank for finance is so key.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have to have the finances coming in and everything. What was the third one?
hospital.
Hospital.
You
Yeah.
take care of your
Services.
people. Yeah.
And there's like right now for our hospital, there's like a big push to build a new wing and everything. So it's like, as a community, it's like, let's embrace that and like try to help fundraise for that hospital.
And
It's
it
a big push.
matters from that multi-generational point of view because as people age, they need that level of care. And it's really hard to find. And in a tiny community like ours, the fact that we have that hospital, it's not the biggest hospital. You're probably, if you got something big going wrong, we're going to stabilize you and get you to another place. But as a perfect example, my 24-year-old, when he was age 5, had a ruptured appendix.
Oh my gosh.
And would not have lived if we had to go to San Luis. So
Wow.
I'm a huge proponent of Arroyo Grande
Yeah.
Hospital for that and many more reasons. But again, when we talk about, it matters. When you have connected communities, you can't do that when people don't know each other. And you can't do that when they're leaving for Thanksgiving. We want everybody to come here for Thanksgiving, you know? So we've got great grandma, us, and the kids and the next generation coming. We want them all to be able to find a place here, to be able to age in place or cash out of their house and have another product that they can go to as
Step
they
down.
downsize.
Yeah.
These are all, what you guys do is really, really important, and how you work with us and communicate with us about what you're hearing on the ground about what's really needed.
Yeah. I love the way you're making decisions though, because you're looking at the finances, you're looking at the reports, you're listening to the people, but you're interweaving an experience of a mom who needs care for her kid. And that's like the heart of it, So together, that's really powerful. It's cool.
It's the fun part of what I do.
Yeah.
It's not about Tuesdays. It's not about those, the meeting and the gavel. It's not about that.
Yeah, well, it's we have such a special community.
Yeah, the gavel.
I might need a gavel in my life.
Don't give her a gavel.
Just come to
Do
my
not
office.
give
Jeff, you're
Bobby
doing
a
this.
gavel. I hereby decree. Well, you are wonderful.
Yeah.
And so we would,
This is
So
a special time.
Yeah, it's really, really neat for us. So thank you. We love to ask you 4 questions. We ask every guest to get to know you a little bit better personally. So question number 1, what's your favorite book, movie, or TV show?
Book, The Phantom Toll Booth.
Oh, I don't know that one. What is that?
I've never heard of that.
Writing it down, Jeff.
Movie, it's a toss-up between Fletch Lives, Blazing Saddles, or Princess Bride.
Oh my gosh, I love them. Wow.
I love that.
All of which we
great.
love.
Yeah.
We love you.
Yes.
Or Airplane.
Yeah.
Or,
Oh, classic
gosh, it's hard.
comedies.
Those are,
Airplane line.
that's-
I'm
Tell
having so many
I love
Blazing
that.
Saddles
So you-
quotes
yeah,
that I
you
can't
can't
say
say
go
you
through my
can't
brain.
say no.
You
So
can never
many.
make that movie ever
No,
again.
no, you cannot.
You know how to have fun, though,
Yeah.
for sure. Good sense of
I love,
humor.
since we talk about hospitals, I love on Airplane, he's like, we need to get to the hospital. And she goes, a hospital? What is it?
Oh yeah,
He
I
goes,
just,
it's a building where they...
you just sent me that reel, right?
Oh, wow.
So funny.
Okay,
That's
who
so
is the
good.
most influential person in your life?
Oh, I didn't do TV show, and it's Ted Lasso.
Oh, Ted
Oh,
Lasso.
I love Ted Lasso.
so good.
I'm rewatching that 15 times.
And I wouldn't have answered that, until we got all the way to the end, but it has literally changed how I look at life. And I watched an interview with Jason Sudeikis after it was over, and he was talking about creating the character of Ted Lasso. And he said, in the environment we were in, which was so negative at the time, he said, I wanted to create a character that was Teflon positive. No negativity could stick to him ever. And it resonated with the whole country. And it's just that, when I heard that, it cemented it as, that's why I loved it so much. Because I'm a glasses half full kind of person. So
I love that.
It's good. Okay.
Okay.
Well, back to that question.
Yes,
Most
go
influential
ahead.
person in your life.
outside of my family, it would be, and anybody listening to this who's lived here a long time will know who this is, and that's Mr. Foster. Mr. Foster was a teacher at Arroyo Grande High School. I was the dork who sat in the front and raised my hand all the time. He used to make me sit on my hands. He taught honors world history and honors English, and it was a double period. So I had that class, and there was one day, and I mean, there were so many lessons from him, but there was one day, I was a freshman, I think, or a sophomore, where he spent the whole day doing a presentation on Hitler and convincing us that Hitler had to have been a really smart person because he was able to achieve all these things that he did, and not many people could do that. And now for the English part of the class, we were supposed to go home and write an essay on this. So I go home and I dutifully write my perfect essay, and I get my essay back and it says it's an F. So I went and talked to him at lunch, and I said, this is a perfectly constructed, like, I don't think I deserve an F here. And he looked at me and he points at me and he looks at me in the eye and he said, Hitler was a madman. Think for yourself.
Oh my goodness.
So he gave everybody an F, basically.
I don't know who else
I love that.
did what, but
Wow.
I was like the dutiful student at that
You
time,
did your
doing
job.
exactly what my teacher was telling me to do. And he's like, don't do that.
I love that.
And it changed my life. It changed my life.
That's amazing.
Dang.
Man.
And to watch him support my political campaigns over the years, he's no longer with us, but that's pretty special when your old
Yeah, I'll
teachers
say.
come and do that. But Mr. Foster,
that makes me
was
emotional.
something
I know
special.
that stays with you.
Yeah,
He was something special.
that was really cool.
He was
Bobby,
a
you wanna-
former pastor. He was like, so he had that voice.
Oh,
Yeah.
Some weight to it.
Yeah.
I love
That's
it. That's a
great.
good one. Okay, next one. Describe your ideal day on the Central Coast.
We like food.
or you can stick to AG.
Or AG.
Or AG.
Yeah.
How about AG?
Central
That's
Coast
great.
is good. AG's best, but I would wake up at 8 because I'm a night owl, and somebody would bring me coffee, and
That's a
then
good
I
start.
would play on my phone for a few minutes and kind of come to the world, and then I would do some sort of watch an HGTV design show or something to get my juices flowing. And then I would maybe go to Sephora. And then I would come home, watch an episode of Top Chef. I would get inspired for whatever I wanted to cook for dinner. I would go to the store and buy a ridiculous amount of specialty ingredients. And then I would
I
come
like her.
home
Me too.
and I would make a fabulous dinner, and I would invite my best friends over. And then we would open up a great bottle of whiskey and play Settlers of Catan.
Can I be your
Okay,
best friend?
fourth question. I need a question.
What are we doing after?
We have to hang out. That is such a good day.
I think you just described his
Yeah,
ideal day.
I love Sephora. Don't tempt me with a good time. I am here for it, all of it. Okay, so I need you to join our next podcast on whiskeys. We'll talk all about whiskeys, one of my favorites. That's a good day.
It's a good day.
It's a good day.
And I
Okay.
only had to leave AG once for Sephora.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, last question. We normally ask people how to get in touch with you, but if folks listening have questions about anything we discussed, what is the best way for them to get involved in the process or get clarification on some of these things or volunteer or any of that sort of thing?
Oh, those are very different things.
I know. Yeah. Hit it all.
Okay, so first of all, if anybody listening has a question, input, an idea, whatever, you can call me. Everybody has my cell phone number. It's 805-234-1270. Just call me or text me, and I'm happy to talk to anybody about whatever their concerns or ideas, or, people come to me with fun ideas all the time, and sometimes I can execute those. So that somebody asked me a couple of years ago, what are we going to do for Christmas? And I wanted to light a tree over at Elm Street Park and bring Christmas out to the other part of the world and our world anyway. And he said, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know. How about snow? Yeah, let's do that. And so we've now been bringing 4 tons of snow 2 years in a row. This is going to be year number 3 now. So come, even if you have a great idea, like a fun idea, just call me. You can email me at Ray Russom, C-R-A-Y, Cray, R-U-S-S-O-M at arroyogrande.org, or you can just go to the Arroyo Grande website and all of our emails are there. That just getting to us electronically, the world through technology, that's super easy. You can find me on Facebook. It's Mayor Caren Ray Russom. I'm on Instagram, same thing. So you can get to me through social media too. And in terms of volunteering, we have a volunteer coordinator, so you can actually go to the Arroyo Grande website and sign up for that. And we have a volunteer coordinator that will find something that fits with what you would like to do. So, for example, if they're kids, a lot of times, like for our Halloween maze, we have volunteers come in. We have community service kids can get done for high school, or if people want to volunteer for things like the Harvest Festival. So we have that. So it really just depends on what they need. If they have an actual true question for like something's happening with their neighbor, they've got a code enforcement issue, they can always come straight to me. There's a link on our website that says I have report a concern. So if you have a pothole in front of your house, if somebody's hedge is falling down, you have a dispute of some kind, there's somebody's parked there who shouldn't be, and something funky's going on, you can contact us that way. A lot of times, because I'm the mayor, people start with me, and that's totally fine. So if you don't know where to go, just start with me, and I'll get you where you need to go.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for being on with us today. I really appreciate it.
It's my
thanks
pleasure.
for
It really was.
thanks
You guys
for
made it
behaving
fun.
yourselves, Bobby and Jeff. We
no
needed
problem.
to really tighten it up today with Mayor Caren.
Yes.
So thank you for being professional. Usually these two are a bit unruly.
That's
so.
true.
Mayor Caren, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thanks
Really
for
appreciate
what
it.
all you all do.
Thank you.
Thank you.